Hey, this is Brian Gibbons. I want to welcome you. This is Lease Options, How They Work. And we are very excited about having live stream available. Live stream available. So, welcome to Lease Options, How They Work. A little bit about me. I've been working as a real estate coach. Probably the first time I was a coach back in the 80s. Uh, Back in the 80s, it was very difficult to get financing to buy a home, and interest rates were very high, sometimes 12 to 14%. Well, we don't have high interest rates, but we do have tight credit right now. So let's talk a little bit about lease options and what they are, and then how can they help a seller, how can they help a buyer, how can they help a real estate agent, and then perhaps how can they even help real estate investors. Okay. A lease with an option basically has a standard lease with an option to purchase agreement. And in the option, it basically says we're going to put some money down to have the right to tie up this property for a period of time. And the option is generally applied toward the purchase price. So if you had a $100,000 house and somebody put $5,000 down as an option, it's non-refundable and it's applied toward the purchase price when they get the mortgage. So they would need to get a mortgage for the difference, or $95,000. Now, how can this lease with options work with perhaps helping buyers buy on terms versus for cash? Well, what kind of buyers would look at a lease with an option? Well, there's many buyers right now that can't get financing, and they got good credit. And there's new laws coming involved with the Dodd-Frank Act, and it's making it harder for debt-to-earnings ratios. It's supposed to be at 43% starting on the 10th of January 2014. What's that going to do with the pool of buyers for homes? Well, if people have not the right DTI and it's verifiable, then we're going to have a problem getting home buyers financed through FHA and conventional mortgages. So if it's going to be more difficult, if credit's going to get tighter, then buyers need to look at alternatives. So one of the best things you can do is to perhaps, go out and look for the perfect home that you want and ask the seller if they would consider selling with a lease with an option, where you would lease for a while and then buy the property down the road. That would give you time to work on your credit rating and to pay down some debt over a period of time. So that's how it helps buyers. How does it help sellers? Well, if the pool of buyers is smaller and credit's tighter, then home sellers are going to have a harder time getting getting a buyer to buy their home. So there's going to be increased competition for a smaller pool of buyers. So if sellers were smart, they would actually advertise their homes, says we will sell this home for cash or on lease option. So, it really is a very creative tool to increase your pool of buyers, because there's going to be a lot more people with really good income and they want to own, but they're going to need some help over the next few years as far as helping them get financing through a lease with an option. Now, I want to touch base on real estate agents. Now, a lot of real estate agents are having a difficult time because they can't get cash buyers through houses. A lot of buyers want to buy and they can't because they can't get financing. Well, if you can educate your buyers to a lease with an option and also use what's called a credit improvement specialist, and we use a wonderful service in Texas that does national work that helps people increase their FICO score. If you do those two things, you can actually make more money as a real estate agent, because you are going to be able to help people that ordinarily couldn't get financing. So you can be a rent-to-own or lease option specialist on the buyer side and get a pool of these buyers and then go help them go find houses. And you can make a commission. Now, the commission structure might be a little bit different. You might make a portion of the option fee. You might make, um, maybe a token payment of maybe $1,000, but get paid when the house closes. There's all sorts of creative ways for you to get your commission. And at reiskills.com, if you go to that site, we'll help you build a business model using lease options and working with buyers and sellers. And what's in it for the seller if you're a real estate agent? How can that help the seller? Well, the seller can increase the speed of the closing. We can generally close within 45 to 60 days. They can also maximize their sales price with no haggling, and we generally sell on lease option based on new appraisal. And the new appraisal is in the future. So let's say the house is worth $100,000 today. Well, it might appreciate down the road. So they can actually make more money by exercising their option price on their option contract and date it in the future. Also, we can have the buyer pay for the closing costs if it's you're going to be representing the seller on a lease option. So they're going to save a good amount of money by having you, the real estate agent, help them sell on lease option. And lastly, real estate investors. How can real estate investors make money 2014, especially with these new laws that are coming in, the Dodd-Frank and the SAFE Act? Well, we've got exciting training just for real estate investors at reiskills.com. It's really fun. And it has to do with a wonderful tool called lease option assignments. Lease option assignments. And what that entails is you find a seller that can't sell for some reason. And most of the times it's low equity. So let's say they had a $100,000 house. Let's say they bought at the top of the market in 2008 or 9. And let's say that they only put 3.5% down on an FHA mortgage. And they might even be a tiny bit underwater, maybe 2 or 3% underwater. Let's say that they owe $103,000 on their mortgage, and all the houses are comped out at $100,000. How can you help that person? Well, what we'll do is we will find a tenant buyer that loves the house, loves the neighborhood, and they'll put down $5,000 for that house. And we'll structure a lease with an option with that seller, and we'll put it in our company name, and always put it in an LLC or a corporation, but we generally use LLCs. So let's say step 1, you lease with an option from the seller, and then you are going to assign or sell your interest in that contract to a buyer for a fee. And that fee is generally the option fee. What does the seller get? The seller gets first and last month's rent, plus they get a contract from a tenant buyer that's going to pay at new appraisal in 12 to 24 months. What does the tenant buyer get? Well, they put $5,000 down, and that's applied toward the purchase price. And then they're going to have the ability to enjoy that neighborhood and that house for the next 12 to 24 months. And what do you get as a real estate investor? Well, you get $5,000, and it generally takes between 7 to 10 hours of work to make $5,000. Now, the training, how we train you is very simple. We charge an upfront fee, and then we will split the first 10 deals with you. We will actually help close the seller and the buyer for you. If you're interested in that, go to reiskills.com. It's a great business model to make $60,000 to $100,000 or more, depending on your market. Because if your market, your median prices are $300,000, your average fee is not $5,000, it's $9,000. If your average house is $400,000, then 3% of that figure is $12,000. So you'd be splitting the $9,000 or the $12,000 and not the $5,000. So we're excited about bringing to the market a lease option assignment training for real estate investors. So let's recap here. What basically have we talked about? We've talked about how do lease options work in general, how can sellers benefit, how can home buyers benefit, how can real estate agents benefit, and also how can real estate investors benefit. So this is Brian Gibbons with reiskills.com. You see my phone number right below. It's 626-318-0599. That's 626-318-0599. I want to encourage you to just give me a call. I'm happy to help you understand how can lease options work in 2014, whether you're a seller, a buyer, a real estate agent, or a real estate investor. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye for now.